been in the Montreal Symphony now for 18 years. Tell me something about how you came to the orchestra in the first place. You auditioned, I assume you did, and at that time the music director was Salle Dutoit, and it was a kind of golden age with the orchestra. So what led you to apply for the position, and what was the experience like?
I came to the orchestra from the Rochester Philharmonic, and I noticed that they were having an international audition for principal trumpet. And for sure, it was an orchestra. Growing up, I basically had 3 recordings in my CD collection. It was the Chicago Symphony, the New York Philharmonic, and the Montreal Symphony, actually. So to have a chance to audition for this back in 1990, I think it was 1994, I auditioned, seemed like a great opportunity, and I for sure wanted to throw my hat in the ring and see how things would work out, and fortunately they did.
And what was the competition like?
Well, one thing I really like about our audition process is that it's entirely behind the screen, all the rounds, all the way through the finals. In some orchestras, in the final round, they remove the screen. So in our case, well, actually the audition was run very well. I was sort of sequestered off in my private room hearing other trumpet players, but I didn't really see them in the hallway where the personnel manager was very discreet about getting us in and out of the room. And I pretty much had my head down because I was nervous, and went in the room and started in the morning and ended late at night that day, and came out thankfully on top, and was invited to do a 2-week mini probation some months later. Did get the vote for that, and then did my 1-year probation, got the vote for that, and now I'm still there. So that was a long audition process, but that's just what we have to do.
Was Dutoit part of this process, or did he come in just near the end? How does it work?
Typically the music director, and in this case Dutoit, yeah, he came at the final round, or final rounds, I should say, and of course he was conducting my mini probation and many of the weeks that I played during that year.
And did he have a vote in whether you stayed, or?
He has a majority vote, yes.
You're an American, and you're coming to what has been called the greatest French orchestra in the world. Was there a culture shock involved in settling into the orchestra and Montreal?
Well, for sure, I didn't speak a lot of French, very little French when I first arrived, and that was something I definitely wanted to tackle. I did hire a private tutor and tried to get my French going. It was difficult with the schedule to take my private lessons in French and also manage with the orchestra schedule, but now I have, I guess, enough of a usable French that I can survive in the French culture in Quebec, and I love living there. It's a wonderful city, and it has a really European feel and a very international feel, and that's something that I personally like very, very much.
If they could only do something about the winter weather.
Well, yeah, seriously, I don't know who we could talk to about that, but with this winter, we had a great winter. It was short, and we had some nice warm days in February and March, so it's all good. We escaped pretty safe this year.
Well, being there 18 years, I'm sure you've seen many changes, people coming and going, a new music director in Kent Nagano, no longer new, he's been there quite a while now, but most importantly, the new hall, and how did you react to that after playing for so many years in the Salle Wilfrid-Pelletier?
Well, I think all of us in the orchestra, we couldn't wait to get in there, to hear the acoustic. That was the primary thing, was to have a superior acoustic, and for sure it is far better than Wilfrid-Pelletier. And I think now we've been in there for some months, and I think all of us are feeling that we know the hall a lot better, how to negotiate its acoustics, how to alter, articulations and volume, and just playing styles in general. So the hall is very exciting. It's like having a new instrument, and it can only get more and more comfortable.
You have a very interesting background in your training experience, and that's one of the reasons you're in Austin too. You've been here several times, and you have a connection with the head of the trumpet department here that goes back a very long way.
Yes.
Ray Sasaki was one of my first teachers. I think I met him when I was 13, and he gave me a private lesson. I was extremely nervous because he was the trumpet professor at University of Illinois, and I was in junior high school, so this was a kind of intimidating first lesson with him. But I felt that we connected well, and I continued to study with him throughout high school. He was my primary teacher through high school, and 1 year at the University of Illinois. So coming back here now a second time in Austin is just very inspirational for me. I'm honored that Ray has invited me these times to play for his students and work one-on-one and in masterclass situations with his students. He has a wonderful studio here, and we've had a really good time these past few days.
Well, he was an important teacher in your younger years, but you went on to study with other trumpet players and teachers, among them Adolphe Herseth of the Chicago Symphony. Tell me something about that.
I only had a few lessons with Mr. Herseth, but they were profound for me. I still have them on cassette tape and keep them in a very secure area, although I don't really want to hear myself playing at 16 years old. But the things that he said to me back then, I still are imprinted in me, and the sounds I heard coming out of his trumpet at that time were profound for me as well. I was 16 the first time. I met him in Orchestre Hall, in the basement of Orchestre Hall, and I was playing a Charlier etude, and he sat in the corner and he basically said, "Start," and he didn't let me stop until the thing was over. And talk about being nervous. But it was so great. He was very inspirational, told me a lot of stories about conductors, like working with Igor Stravinsky. And these kind of stories for me were, at 16 years old, were amazing, very inspirational. And his work ethic was always, and I believe still is, very, very comprehensive, very disciplined, and a lot of care. That's something that spoke very well to me at that age. I took that very, very seriously, and I still do to this day. I'm a practicer. I like to practice, and I like to try anyway to get better. And he definitely helped instill that.
Well, it's fascinating, the connections between teachers and students in the trumpet world. And just the other day I was listening to the famous Ravel Daphnis recording with Munch and the Boston Symphony from 1955. And the trumpet section is just on fire in that performance. And even though it's an old recording now, it still sounds fantastic, especially the trumpet playing. And there you had Roger Voisin and Armando Guitarra. But you were telling me just the other day that Voisin had succeeded Georges Mangier, also a French-born trumpet player. And Mangier was the teacher of Adolphe Herseth?
That's right.
I didn't know that before.
Right.
And what does that tell us about trumpet playing in American orchestras, the sound of the trumpet sections, and the style of playing?
Well, for sure, there's a European influence there, the French school. If we talk about the French school, the first thing that comes to mind for me is articulation, clarity and precision of articulation, not necessarily weight of sound and volume so much, but this precision. However, I think that through the years, particularly Mr. Herseth, studying with Mr. Mager, when he played in Chicago Symphony under Reiner, those recordings are legendary, and the brass became famous with that style of playing. A lot of articulation, but also a lot of power and excitement and brilliance in the sound. So I think that French school kind of got mixed in with an American style of playing, or an American personality that's a little more upfront and brilliant. And the combination of those two, for me, it's a wonderful combination, because you have clarity and you have power.
But with that also, sorry to belabor this point, but with that too is that when you have control of your articulation and tone color, you're able to shade the sound as well. So with the power, you can also have the extreme softs. And I love personally to delve into those two areas, to be able to open up on an Alpine symphony or a Mahler symphony, but also to be able to play very intimate and very lyrical and very soft and beautiful. I think that those two colors for me are areas that I like to delve into in my playing a lot.
Where does the Montreal Symphony fit in all this? You had Charles Dutoit for many years as music director, Swiss conductor, steeped in the French style, French repertoire, a master in that sort of repertoire, and presumably he molded the orchestra to reflect that perspective. But I mean, time marches on, and we have Kent Nagano now, who has his own idea of what an orchestra should sound like, and what the repertoire should sound like. He's American, but as we know, he has partly Japanese heritage, but he spent many years in France and Germany. So where does the Montreal Symphony sound find itself today, especially the brass sound?
Mm-hmm. Well, certainly if I reflect back to my first few years with the orchestra under Maestro Dutoit, words come to mind like precision, ensemble, brilliance, abandon, passion. The orchestra was like fireworks sometimes, you know, especially when we would go on tour, because we were always in better halls when we were on tour. These are words that come to mind, and I don't know where you would fit that into which school. I wouldn't call it the American school. I would call it a mixture of different styles, from European and perhaps North American style. I think with Maestro Nagano, well, I know now that the sound of the orchestra has changed. In our case, in the trumpets, we use the German rotary trumpets a lot more. We didn't use those so much with Dutoit, only in the latter years. The German trumpets, the rotary trumpets, give a more blended sound, a more covered sound, blending into the ensemble more instead of penetrating through. So I would say that we're taking on more of a European approach with Maestro Nagano, and exploring a bit new repertoire as well.
Yeah, a little more Germanic
Sure.
than French, perhaps.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Although we do play, well, we run the gamut. We've played everything. The range of repertoire in our season is vast. Very interesting, actually.
You're involved in a project to encourage young musicians. You have your own scholarship program. Tell me something about that.
I started this scholarship fund about 11 years ago, and I run it through the OSM concours, which is done every November in Montreal with the Montreal Symphony. And the reason I started this is when I was a student at Eastman, I come from a single-parent household, and going to school at a major conservatory was just a bit pricey, and we had some difficulties financially, making it through that degree. However, there was a life-changing moment for me, a concert that we did in Carnegie Hall at Mahler's Second Symphony, that I was fortunate enough to win the principal position, and I was awarded a scholarship based on that performance for outstanding orchestral musician. This scholarship allowed me to finish my education at Eastman and ultimately prepared me to win my first job during my senior year in the New Orleans Symphony, and I wouldn't be here today without that encouragement and financial help. So I felt as though good karma would be to pay that back in some way. I didn't know how, but I first approached Eastman with it because I felt that I should have it at the school where I got help. But their initiation fee for opening a scholarship was more than I can afford at that time. So I thought that I would approach my orchestra, and they were very receptive to it. And here we are 11 years later. I give $2,000 away each year. It's not that much, but my stipulation is a talented student, but also one that has to show that they need the money, that they come from a place of financial need. And it's been very rewarding for me, and I didn't think we'd last this long. We do a little fundraising concert every year, but it's turning out to be an angle of my career that I never anticipated the rewards that it would give me, and the connections and the support that I'm able to give to younger musicians now. I'm getting older now, so I can now think of myself as helping the next generation, which I'm really embracing that, and I'm really enjoying it, actually.
Wonderful idea.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time. It was great to see you in Austin.
Thank you.
And look forward to seeing you back in Canada.